we had Tony La Russa yesterday announce his retirement, due to health concerns. He's stepping away from the Sox. He mentioned, some of his regrets over the years of not getting them, completely over the hump. But definitely, he appreciated his moments being with the White Sox and getting them to the, ALDS last year. This year we're fighting for 500. It seems like we might be able to get there, which is, I think something still to be appreciated, or like, given all the stuff that's happened this year, should be kind of respected in some sort of way. But, I've heard a lot of rumors and speculation about what could happen next, whether it's the manager to come in 2023. It's, what are we going to do with this team, this nucleus? We've talked about this quite a bit this year, but, Wayne, do you have any thoughts on La Russa and then, what's coming up for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, with La Russa, like, hey, it always felt like, we always saw those memes of him just sleeping, it's like, hey man, just go. It's okay. Like, we're okay. Let Miguel Cairo take over. He did an okay job. I know there was a 8-game losing streak that didn't help, his manager prospects, I guess, for the White Sox here. But hey, he's a Hall of Fame manager, whether it was with the White Sox mainly or not. So wish him good health and everything. But this was definitely foreseen for sure. With regards to the search and everything, I think we heard that Hahn basically said that he would like somebody outside of the White Sox organization. So if that's the case, then hey, great. Let's look and see and pop up all the speculation on who will be the next White Sox manager going forth. But I think whoever it's going to be, though, is going to come to I think a good situation overall. We've always been saying that the White Sox are probably like one of the most talented teams in baseball, but for whatever reason, the coaching, the inspiration, the hitting coach, they just could never put things all together, and they always underperformed. At least this season, it's funny, yeah, they underperformed, but then they're a 500 record type of team, so just goes to show, like, how much I guess a good manager, halfway decent manager, can help out there. So, but yeah, looking forward to seeing what candidates pop up.
Yeah, I heard the same thing from Hahn, which threw off my idea of who would be the next coach, because I think what you and I were talking about was Girardi, possibly a Joe Madden, maybe a White Sox, former player, something like that. But talking about going outside the organization, something that like really, piqued my interest. So I was kind of like doing a little bit of digging, especially on the context of like, he wants somebody who's been in the dugout over the last 10 years, who understands like the context of analytics and has been like part of a winning organization. But if it's not anybody we've already discussed, I mean, it seems like you look at some of the best teams over the last 10 years and start looking at, their bench coaches and other things. And it's like, Bob Jaron is the bench coach for the Dodgers. He was once the A's head coach. He's been to, at least some ALDS trips with the A's back in his day. Ron Washington has been kind of kicked around. I mean, he's getting a little bit older, but he has, World Series experience with the Rangers, and he's been, part of the Braves organization for a while as their third base coach, I want to say. And I know Joe Espada from the Astros has been their bench coach. He's been doing, interviews, I think, over the last couple of years for head coaching spots, and hasn't, quite landed anything so far for him yet. And then I know Hensley Mullins from the Yankees is their bench coach, but another guy I've heard, kind of in the mix for jobs over the last couple of years and hasn't, quite landed. But no, I think this could be really interesting, and I really hope Reinsdorf's on board with whatever Hahn puts, forward as far as like, here's our list. And I'm sure Kenny will play a part in, kind of discussing with Jerry, but also discussing with Rick. I feel like he's kind of like the bridge guy between, preserving the White Sox culture, but in the same sense, like moving into the future a little bit. So we'll see. I think the only other point I thought of as far as, La Russa's tenure, Renteria, and what, Liam Hendricks actually had to say was just that the team was lacking, an authoritarian figure. And I think he said it in multiple ways. He said, number one, our manager like really needs to take the reins, which is why when you mentioned Joe Girardi, I think that's actually like probably as close as you're going to get to like somebody who's got World Series experience, got the analytics stuff down, is definitely like a hard ass. Like I feel like Girardi would come in and like, definitely run a tight ship if that's what they're missing. But I guess this kind of segues into the 2023 portions, is what Liam was saying, is like, we need authoritarian figures in like how we lead and how guys like keep each other accountable. We need guys who are like going to step in and like push each other and stuff. And I think that's something that's definitely missing. Like he was mentioning, it's nice to have it out of the bullpen. It's nice to have it every fifth day with a certain starter, but like we need position players that are like complete alphas that are like ready to, impose their will on folks. So it's kind of like, that's what I'm thinking going into this, next year and beyond. It's like, how can we kind of, retool our core and our supporting cast to bring in some guys with some real experience, with some leadership qualities to them. Like, we are searching for a legitimate outfielder, I feel like, at least in right field. Whether we bring in like an everyday type second baseman, everyday type third baseman, barring all these injuries we've had, that's another part of it. So we'll see how they retool, but I'm totally cool with them looking at that core really hard, like we've discussed, and making like a really hard trade. Like if it's like, this team wants Eloy or they want Moncada, or hey, possibly it's like Tim Anderson, or we have to, maybe end our time with Jose Abreu. I mean, like these are the things that we're actually looking at now. If we want to actually compete for championships moving forward, and not just be like the place where we establish like, those like household names. Cause I feel like the White Sox are very much like, give their guys a long leash and like make them part of the culture for a long period of time. And it's like, sometimes you got to be a little bit more cutthroat about it if you want to win games.
Yeah, I know for sure. I like your take. But yeah, and hey, I'm ahead of my time, I guess, with George Girardi. I feel like, I think that, I mean, that's just how I felt. Like, they definitely need somebody that it just seems like they're almost too lax, I think was where I was going with that. Another candidate, kind of, I guess, quasi dark horse, but wondering if we can pull him away from the Nationals, is Dave Martinez possibly. That could be a nice pick, I think, if we're able to nab him. I think he's got one more year on his contract, but if we're able to score a deal like that, that could be something. He won a World Series, and the Nats are kind of going like rebuilding mode in a way. So it's like, if that's the case, maybe he wants to like actually win and be part of a winning team. And hey, he can definitely do that probably with the White Sox and kind of bring that moxie over. So that would be my like dark horse. But I think you mentioned all the names I was thinking of that were kind of outside, that also outside the organization, that also kind of like has like some sort of bench coach type of experience, that are just hot names going forth. So. But yeah, Dave Martinez possibly, or Joe Girardi, I think would be my top picks.
Dave Martinez would be awesome. I mean, I don't know if he's available. If I was, Rizzo out in Washington, I mean, out here, I should say, I wouldn't let that guy go. I mean, I think he brings a lot of different things you want. I mean, he comes from the Tampa Bay organization under Madden. Loved him during those days. Like, Madden spoke the world of him then. He's kind of understood what it takes to kind of develop a team with the Nats. And then, once you bring on some more payroll and, see these guys kind of get to their peak levels, like be a part of a championship run. He's Latino, which I think is a huge perk if you're going to come to the White Sox and you can speak Spanish. I mean, imagine the kind of rapport you could build with guys that are, your cornerstones. You got Robert, you got Jimenez. Whether these guys stick is one other thing, but like Abreu, you just kind of go down the line. I mean, Moncada, a lot of those guys, I mean, it just seemed like the core of the team was mostly Spanish speaking. So outside of our, mostly our pitching staff, but yeah, I don't, there are really no drawbacks to Martinez. And then, especially because he's been part of the White Sox organization. He used to be an outfielder for us growing up. I used to watch him. So he knows Chicago well too. He was with the Cubs for a while as an outfielder. So, I mean, he'd be a perfect fit. If that happened, I'd be actually ecstatic, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with this contract. But those are some good names. Did you have any thoughts on the player side of things?
I mean, I think it's pretty standard. Yeah, it's definitely one of those, like, I don't know if we really want to keep Andrew Vaughn out in the outfield and all that chasing chasing fly balls, and that strongly is where, well, it sounds like he maybe still want to be playing. So, it'd be sad to see him in a different uniform. But I think in terms of keeping that core piece and getting the best out of him, like I think Andrew Vaughn probably deserves and has earned the right to, especially this season. He's probably arguably our best hitter, I guess throughout the season. And yeah, I think he deserves it probably if he wants to go to first base more so. So that's definitely what I think. And then obviously adding some left-handed hitting, I think, I guess we felt really comfortable just having a bunch of righties out there and throwing in like, Gavin Sheets, I guess, as like your only lefty and some switch hitting hitters in there as well. But I think, yeah, having some sort of left-handed outfielder can definitely help. And, if we got to say goodbye to Yasmani, we got to say goodbye to Yasmani, but, maybe an upgrade there. And yeah, a second baseman of some sort. I don't know if Josh Harrison plans on wanting to stay here or anything like that, but I feel like, if we're able to upgrade, I think we definitely have to jump on the opportunity for that. So, but yeah, if we can get a left-handed hitter, outfielder of some sort, that would be great. Or, see what we can do, I think, from internally in that sense too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see, if we get to the off season, let's say it's Abreu, maybe we swing a trade with like the Milwaukee Brewers and we can bring over like Colton Wong to be our second baseman, something like that. Or maybe it's a package deal where we go to the Padres, who are, prone to make big trades, and we can, maybe pry like a Trent Grisham with, maybe one of their starting pitchers, and then we, give them a Abreu, or maybe it's, Grandal's in the package or something. And, another team I kind of thought about was like Seattle, like maybe we flip, whether it's a Abreu or Grandal or something like that, and we can bring over like a Jesse Winker type who, is like slightly disappointing for them, but is like a fixture in the outfield, probably for most teams, and left-handed bat, good on base guy. I'm just trying to think of ways like, how can we get more athletic? How can we, maybe bring some new voices in, guys that have had, some sort of experience across the league and, playoff settings, or, something of the sort. Like I don't know what the perfect thing is, but I think athleticism is definitely one. I'd love to see Vaughn just like parked up at first base. I'd love to see Eloy out of the outfield, just playing nothing but DH for the rest of his career. I don't want to see that guy injured. I mean, feeling like looking at, the amount of games that some of our core pieces missed this year. I actually did a quick look around last week at, some of our core players, and I wrote it down. Still kind of thumbing through it, but of our 5 like best players, we talk about like Jimenez, Moncada, Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, and one other guy. I mean, they didn't play 100 games this year. So if you have, and Grandal's the other guy. So as of last week, Robert had 98 games, Jimenez had 77 games, Moncada 97, Grandal 94, and Tim Anderson 79. That's just not going to cut it. Like, it's just not going to cut it. So these guys, we talked about health, we talked about, wellness and everything like that, whether it's, the staff on hand or it's just these guys keeping themselves accountable. Like, they've got to be on the field for us to win.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, I mean, they got to be on the field to win, and they got to actually then show up. I don't know how much that their injuries interfered with their performance. It definitely took like Moncada like a while to get going there. But when he did, it was great. But he definitely, his best parts of the season, he had more bad parts, I feel like, than good parts in the season. So the only other, I was just looking at also at the farm system too, and I just also realized, I forgot that we also have 2 lefties out there. So we do have the 7th largest payroll, I believe, in baseball. So if Reinsdorf feels cheap, hey, look, you have maybe just promote internally with some athletic outfielder, or with Oscar Colas, or possibly Colson Montgomery. I don't know what the future holds for Colson Montgomery, but he did really well in Double-A. Whether we want to stick him either in the infield or maybe the outfield, depending on, I guess, the positions that we want to be choosing and how we want to be putting in the certain players in the infield or outfield. So, but yeah, we'd love to see, some sort of changing, more left-handed hitting in the lineup there. And then, yeah, would also just love to see a healthy Michael Kopech too, because when he's good, he's good. I think he just had some surgery, so it's like, hey man, if he can just be there for a full season, God, I mean, he's got all the potential in the world to be, one of the best starting pitchers out there, but he just never seems to be healthy, and that's really a big thing, as we were pointing out before. So. But hey, worst case, he's an ace in the bullpen. I think has been always our whole thing. So
yeah, I think for Kopech, he just needs time to ramp up in the pros. I think they did a good job this year making him like kind of a bridge guy. He was injured, but definitely had a really good first half. For some of the other guys, just on the injury front, the one thing that I think as far as performance goes, like it definitely was impacting their performance just for the sake that like these guys were on the IL and off the IL often. It wasn't like you tore your ACL, you come back and like you missed 30 games and you played the rest of the season out. It's like this guy, hammy and then 2 weeks and then comes back 5 games back on the IL with something else. And it was like, they never really established any sort of rhythm. And especially as a collective unit, it was like we were saying, we're always piecing together a lineup every night and the lineup kept getting shuffled and stuff. So it's just like, what is this team? What's our identity? How are we establishing ourselves? And you like kind of look over at Cleveland and like, they've got, they had like Kwan, they had Rosario, they had Ramirez, and that was like set. And it was like pretty much set for like a long period of time. And just like, that's how you got to establish like that continuity in the lineup. It's like, you just know who you're banking on every game. And then people can start establishing roles. But like, when we're doing the Lurie Garcia stuff at the 3-hole and we were doing like Gavin Sheets out in right field experimentation, like just stuff can't fly next year. So like, we just need to establish roles early and, put these guys in their best positions to succeed. Stop, stretching guys like Vaughn, having them play 3-4 positions. Like we just can't be doing that stuff. Like you got to say goodbye to some of our legends or, make some room for guys that are going to be cornerstones for the future.
Yeah, no, for sure. 100%. And I think the key thing is just be healthy, be as healthy as you can. Every single player I feel like was on, the IL of some sort of deal, basically, throughout the season. And you can't just have that, like, do some load management or whatever you need for them to just play the max amount of games. But yeah, like you were saying, the continuity just wasn't there this season.
No doubt. Well, we'll do some more coverage of this kind of moving into the fall and the winter once we wrap up with the World Series and everything like that. But looking forward to a strong off season from our team. Rick Hahn,